So here are the seeds that we collected from the chilies yesterday. I put on my gloves because these are some very spicy seeds, and they'll be covered in some of the spiciest parts of the plant. And the goal for today is to put them into a place where I can store them for a long time, and we'll also dry them out. So yeah, I'm going to start off by opening up this bag. Might need to tear it, but I ought to be careful. So I'm going to push all the seeds down and make a rip. Okay, they've started to go everywhere. But I'm going to be storing them in this this beaker here. So here we go. And because I've got so many seeds, it's not really much of an issue that I'd be wasting a few. However, I don't really want them to go everywhere because, as I said, they are exceptionally spicy. What I'm going to be doing with these seeds is I'm going to be placing a filter almost over the top of this container, and with that it should be able to not only absorb some water, but it's also going to be stopping them from having much of the effects of the air. They're not going to rot, hopefully. They should just be drying, and this is actually very annoying, so open up a bit more. That's it. When handling chilies of this nature, it is, as I found out, very important to wear gloves. I ended up, after the last video, having a rash on my hands that stung for a few days. I also managed to get chili in my eyes twice, and neither of them experiences were very pleasant. I also got it on the tip of my nose as well, just by chili particles being in the air, I believe, and me rubbing them into my face. But still, it's important to shower after handling chilies. Now, although toilet paper at the moment is one of the most expensive things in the world, I am actually going to be using two sheets of it to act as the filter. The reason I'm using this is because it's highly water absorbent, and also, well, not highly, but it'll do the job at keeping some water at bay. But also, it's breathable, and it really needs to be breathable so that the air in there doesn't become stagnant and allow them to rot. They're going to be drying in a controlled environment. I'm probably going to leave them in my wardrobe, although a boiler room is probably best, so I might end up moving them to there, or starting them off in there, depending on where there's space. So as you can see, there we go. So it'll be fine to leave them there for 2 or 3 weeks, and after that I'll be starting to do something with them, such as I'll be planting them firstly, and I'll be putting them into a smaller container for them to be stored for a longer period of time. So I'll be updating the video with the progress on these over the next couple of weeks, and this is going to be able to show me how the classical way and how efficient the classical way of drying chilies really is. Obviously it'll take longer, but whether it has nicer effects, better effects, leads to less damage of the chilies, less regression in their flavour, we'll be able to see through this process. Now, here is the finished, well, not finished product, but here is the dried chilies 2 days later. As you can see, in the base, the salt has taken in so much water that it has actually almost become a liquid solution of salt water itself. So this represents the point at which I'm going to have to take everything out of here, dry it up, clean it, and put them in the oven for a bit longer, just so that we can get these properly dry to avoid any risk of them going mouldy. But yeah, at the bottom they're still rather sludgy and wet, so we need to sort that out. They've also decreased in volume to an extent, showing how possibly the ones at the top, as you can see, are drying still, but the ones at the bottom really aren't. They need to be sorted out. So this is going to be stored like this for several weeks before I transfer it to some smaller containers for it to be stored in the long term. Now, this is the air drying setup I created yesterday, 2 days ago, sorry. So far I have seen little progress, however progress nonetheless. Some of them have begun to shrivel. You might be able to see this here. They also are showing, yeah, they've decreased in mass, decreased in volume. The stems have become a bit more crispy, but overall it's nowhere near done. However, it is a 2-week long process, and therefore over the course of this time we should see some progress with it. So it's been about 3 days until I did the first round of drying on my chilies. The seeds had been drying in my airing cupboard for about, well, for that time, and they've reached a state where they're quite dry. It's you know, it's gone through that process quite a bit. Just recently I have decided to plant some of them to see what the product will be, see if they germinate, and also to get some chili plants. This is the state of my dried chilies. Volume has gone down considerably again. These have just been left in here with the lid off. Oh, and this is my apparatus, but we'll get more into that a little later. For this one, this is a type of germination that I've seen done before. Essentially, it's just it's some wet cloths and yeah, some mud and the seeds, and that should do the business. And this is a mini greenhouse thing, and the aim of this is to, you know, be able to protect them from frost in the morning and the likes, and also give them a safe space to grow. In there I have about 5 sections where I've put a bunch of seeds, and you know, seeing if any germinate, because if they do, what I'm going to be doing with them is just plant them in some bigger pots and putting them around my garden, and or, well, some will be in my room, some in my shed, just to try and see what we can do with it really. I've got plenty of time on my hands, so I might as well grow some chilies. That sums everything up progress wise. The chilies that are air drying, they are, you know, still in the process. Not really much worth showing. They've just gotten a bit baggier, so I'll update on them a bit further. Ooh, see if it was twisted like that. Whoa! So it was brought to my attention by a friend that the seeds that I'd left to germinate inside of the paper towel had the potential to go mouldy, and that it would be necessary for me to replace the paper towel at some point. So I'm going to take this opportunity whilst I'm replacing the towel to discuss with you, well, to show how I did it. And I mean, it's not very hard, but you know. So here we are. It's about 3 days since they've been put in. It's not looking amazing. Very little's happened, but I'm just going to replace the towel and hope for the best. So the way I'm going to replace it is actually probably by putting them in a completely new box. So I'm going to set my GoPro up and then I'm going to do that. So here are the seeds that have been germinating. So far I don't see much progress. They have little nibs on, which I'm assuming is where the roots are going to come out of, but you know, it's not looking overly positive. I'm going to place this down. There's a seed in there. I'm going to line it with some tissue paper. Toilet roll, is it? Okay, so it's got some toilet roll in there. And then I'm just gonna, I guess, put the contents of this into it. So, might need a something to get it out with. Very scientific glass rod. Oh, that can go. Come on then. Sorry if this is very unsatisfying. So yeah, as I said, my good friend grows chilies, grows a lot of things, chilies being one of them, and he told me, oh, that looks like it's not doing the best, so we'll leave that one in there. Told me that I should probably not leave these in my shed firstly, probably leave them somewhere a bit darker and a bit warmer, and also that I should replace the paper around them, so that's what I'm doing. So that's good. Well, kind of good. They're pretty rubbish anyway. And yeah, I'll leave this for when I want to change it again, so I'll alternate between this and the other one. So I've just spread them out a bit, put the remaining tissue on top, and push it down a bit, and I'm going to go get some water. As the French would say, I am returned, and I'm just going to coat this with some water. I'm not very sure whether if any of what I'm doing is correct, but I do know that I'll be able to see in a couple of weeks if it's gone or gone well or not. Across the just over here, I have the other setup, which is a more standard setup. I'm actually going to water that now. And in here, there's about 5 holes where I've put a lot of seeds in, and you know, the aim of this is that again, I just want to see if any of them will germinate, and if so, I'll be transferring it. So far that's looking all right. So there's one that has a bit of a seed coming off of it, a bit of a root. Yeah. Okay, I don't know enough about gardening to be able to have any clue whether what is going on is good or not. I'll leave that in there. However, one can hope it should be alright. I've got a decent amount of more seeds. I probably shouldn't have used as many as I did, for 2 reasons. They definitely won't all work, especially not in these environments, and also it leaves me less to have another go with if both of these methods are completely rubbish. Anyway, that concludes that really. What I've been doing with my seeds is I've just put them into an area a very safe area, an area that I deemed to be, oh shit, knock them over, pretty sunproof. So yeah, here they are. They've just been in the back of here, but I'm going to go put them back in the airing cupboard as well, just because I'm going to be putting this in the airing cupboard, because I got told that it really needed to be as warm as possible rather than focusing on sun, which does make sense. I just figured that once the plants had germinated that some sun would help, but my friend kindly pointed out that the only reason plants need sun is for photosynthesizing, and it's their leaves that do that. So and also to go towards the light, but they don't do that. They use gravitropisms rather than phototropisms when they're actually in the ground. And the light levels would be too low anyway. So I'm going to transfer these over, and that concludes this section of the video. Okay, so the rehydration process of dried chilies states that you can bring chilies back to not their full ripeness, but you know, you can bring back the fluids to a chili by leaving it in water for about half an hour. And now there's much better advice on this topic online in other places than this video, but I believe that to be what has happened in the bottom of the container. So as you can see, the chilies that were at the top have remained nice and crispy and dry. Chilies that were at the bottom have gone back to the state that they were before I'd started, which represents a failure in what I have undergone. So this time I've put the ones that needed the more attention onto this, because last time I found that worked better to dry chilies. And these in this one, these will probably be done by the end of this, and I will be storing these separately, probably after this, some in this, some in here. I've also found a chili that looked a bit worse for wears in the middle. I wasn't going to risk that spreading any mold or disease throughout the rest of my chilies, so I completely took it out. What was going on in the bottom of this container was actually really similar to the process that you undergo before you create chili sauces. So it's actually the fermentation of chilies. So they were left in a sort of chili brine, and because of the chilies that were on top acting as a bit of an airlock, they actually would have started to ferment, and that's not very good for my process, but you know, it kept most of the bacteria away, and it probably helped them a bit. It's I can't imagine it being very detrimental to the overall chili capsaicin extraction process, so we should be all right on that front. I'm going to get putting these back into the oven. I'm going to spread this out a bit more, get it nice and evened out, and then I'm going to update in a bit on some of the other things that have been going on regarding my chilies. So whilst the chilies are in the oven, I'm going to take this time to show you about the other facets of my chili life. The first thing will certainly be this, the drying chilies. As you can see, there's been excellent progress on this. However, it has been about a week, so that's expected. But yeah, they've gone really wrinkly. And I'd say in another week, they're going to be ready to crush up into chili flakes. And actually, they're much better so far than the chilies that I've dried by force. So going forward, depending on how this batch goes, that could look like the path for me. Another thing I've done is, see, I've had a bit of a failure when trying to germinate these seeds. I've got 3 different methods going at the moment. This, I'm sorry to say, is the current state with my my first attempt at germination. It is just, what? No way. Okay, so that there is germinated, and so's that, and so's that, and so's that. I've done it. Okay, I was about to rip into this saying how it's so bad and it's never gonna work and I've really lost heart with it. Wow. Okay, in a bit I'll clean everything up and I'm gonna actually have another look at that. That's amazing. I'm just gonna put this in my mouth and water that a second. So as I say, at the start I was really hopeful about this idea, but I've been maltreating it a little bit, and so I didn't actually think that I'd have any success with it. It looked like it had gone mouldy. I was probably going to throw it away in the next day. Wow. Okay. On to method number 2, which was when I started to take it a bit more seriously. I watched a video about how to germinate seeds, and I actually I copied it as far as I could. And I have this. Now, what this is on a piece of tissue, I have seeds laid out, and I've watered it a bit and I've folded it up. I've just kept it in here for the past 3 days, and so I'm going to come back to that in a couple of days and just have a look at how it's going. I bought some chili seeds online, hoping that I would be able to know how to germinate by the time that they actually arrived. Luckily, I've just found out that I do know how to germinate seeds, but I won't be doing them in as much of a neglected state as that. Now, these are the ahi lemon drop chili peppers from Seed Sunneeds. And yeah, it's a plant that I really was interested in after I saw Chili Chump's video on it. Now, if you're watching this, unless you're watching it for my EPQ, then you probably know who Chili Chump is. He's an amazing guy. I've learned a lot from him. Literally anything I'm saying is pointless. Just go watch him instead, is how I'd sum it up. But yeah, no, these they're not too spicy. I believe they're around 30,000 to 80,000, so they're in the, I'd say, nice range for me at least. Spicier than a jalapeno, not as spicy as a Scotch bonnet. And they have a really nice, distinct flavour, I believe. I've never tried one, but that's what I've heard. And I want to actually get into making some chili sauce, so they're going to be growing throughout the year. And hopefully by this time next year, I should have some chili sauce to show for them. Now, these are my other attempt at germination, which is kind of void now, unless all of these have germinated when I next check. What I've done, it's a bit of a ghetto setup, as it were, but The audio here was horrible, so I decided I'll just explain what I was saying. I didn't say much of any use, but it's just this was my new little greenhouse setup that I made in my bathroom as a second attempt. That is now there, and it's doing its thing. Don't know if I will be actually ever talking about random stuff like that on this channel, but you know, if I end up doing so, I might as well start early. So just letting you know, I play rugby, I like running. Other hobbies include my studies. I do double maths, physics and French, A-level. Hoping to go to Cambridge University. Kind of sums it up really, but yeah, that's a little bit about me that I've just thrown into this video. I'm sure you'll learn more in the future if you ever want to. It is 12:30 and these chillies have been going for the best part of 6 hours, maybe 7. So let's have a look and see the progress that we can. Here are the chillies that were dry pretty much before they went into this process, and here they are now after another couple of hours of drying. So these are the ones that have been air dried the first time for about 5 hours and dried now for another verging on 5-6 hours. And what you can see and what you can hear is that they really are dry. Listen, you see that? These are verging on perfection for what I need. I'm probably going to be drying them again, however not for a considerable amount of time, because these are exactly where I want them. The chillies that started off very soggy, you saw them to begin with, they were wet, they'd been at the bottom of the thing, and yeah, these aren't, you can't hear the crisp, they are, well, some of them you will be able to, because, so that one for example, but you know, for the most part they're still chewy as it were, and so I'm storing these in a different place. These are going to be in the jar that they were in originally. It's now cleaned, and I am going to be doing these again at a later date for another probably around 6 hours, seeing as though this is what the good ones started out. So here are the two methods I've come up with for storing these chillies. In this we have a layer of salt at the bottom, a layer of 4 tissues to absorb anything else, and then the chillies on top. The reason I've got this is because last time, if you remember, there was that sludge chillies in the air that gathered at the bottom, and to avoid this I've just put as much absorbent stuff as I could at the bottom. So there will be a sludge, but there'll be a layer on top that prevents it from causing the chillies at the bottom to be rehydrated. And in here we have the kitchen paper underneath, and then the really dry chillies on top. I'm just going to be storing them like this for now, because they're going to be releasing a lot of water off of them because they're warm still, so they'll form condensation. And same with this, I'm going to leave them with the lids off overnight. In the morning I'll put them into somewhere better to store. I'm going to stuff some more of the kitchen roll on top, and then a bit more salt, put the lid on and leave that until I can do it again, because what I really don't want is for them to be rehydrated again, because last time that resulted in this problem we have here with this disparity between the really dry ones here and the not so dry ones over here. So I'm going to be really trying to get the next time I dry them to be the last time I dry them and get them perfect, so I can crush them up into the powder and then we can get on with the project. Good night.